it's the capacity to actually attract the right staff. And then most of those other things under that is dependent on having the correct staff. And I guess I'm becoming more cynical in the fact that I think at times we're playing over the edges, because if we haven't got the capacity to actually recruit the right staff and make significant changes about the teaching and learning, then we constantly just try to fiddle around the edges.
Yeah. Well, let's just deal with that, because I think it's one that you can't. It's a real issue, all right. But it's one you can't just sort of wave a magic wand at. The experience of most of those schools was that they weren't able to change the staffing substantially in the early years. You were having to work, apart from some individual cases, you were basically having to work with the staff that you inherited. And I think that's a massive challenge to actually achieve that culture change. And I'd like us to actually begin to problem solve some of that as we go through. What seems to happen over time, and Glenn, you may have a response on this, is that once the culture has begun to change, then staff will choose to opt out if it's not the school that they really want to be in. A lot of the schools that I've seen, I know that what we're talking about, that has happened. So what for me is as worrying as more worrying is that we've got a lot of schools in England now where we just can't get maths teachers, right? And that is so you just can't get a teacher to cover a curriculum area, and that for me is a real worry. And I don't know, it's a shame that Wayne has gone, because I think that you can't, I was in a school the other day where they just don't have maths teachers. A parent was actually banging on the door just complaining about that provision. And in the short term, they'd done all they could do, right? And that has to become then a regional, I think, a regional responsibility.
Is maths a specific issue, or is there a shortage of teachers across the board?
Far less so now than it was, but maths and physics. But physics is, in a sense, less important. Everyone does maths. Maths is a real issue. Any other general comments? Okay. Well, what I want to do now is to take us on to a more interactive part of the session. Now, you've got you should now have on your tables a pro forma, and thanks Lena for getting this done so quickly. Again, I want us to actually share this with around the room, and I'm going to try and get the team to actually do an analysis of these responses. So what I'd quite like you to do is, for each school to, produce a clean copy for each school, so we can actually distribute, photocopy, and then share that. So we're going to take, I think the best thing to do is to take two of these variables together. I'm just going to introduce them very briefly. Then I want you to actually discuss them on your tables, to give yourself an assessment on where you are on the individual variables. We're there, we're a work in progress, we're not yet started. We often use what we call a RAG rating, red, amber, green. Red this is a real problem. Amber is we're going on. Green, we're doing pretty well. We can share this with other colleagues, all right? So I'd like you to make a sort of in one sense, a sort of a collective judgment for your school as to where you assess, all right? But I also want you to write down in the box what you're actually doing, all right? So that we can use this as a basis of sort of sharing amongst the group of schools. So if there's stuff that you're doing which is certainly in the green area, just write that down so we can use this as a resource for sharing around, okay? So let's just try and deal with the the one having vision, values, and high expectations.